Hi, I'm theciaellis, and welcome to Grandma's Homestead. All right, this is another next in the series of the Great Depression food, and I'm going to share this one with you that I think is kind of interesting. This is supposed to be onion gravy over bread, and you go, onion gravy over bread. That doesn't sound very much, but you know what? If you've got people that you've got to feed, and all you got's a couple onions and you got some broth. Okay, no, I've got chicken broth. Some people use vegetable broth because if you think about it, in the Great Depression, meat was kind of valuable. But they did have vegetables. A lot of them had vegetables, and many of them had their own victory gardens and grew their own vegetables and stuff. So you can make broth out of it. And if nothing else, you can do water, I don't know, whatever. Something to make a gravy. And if you have meat, frying it up with the onions is actually a good thing and makes everything very flavorful. But we don't have meat with us tonight. All we have is onions and the stuff to make the gravy, to put it on the bread. And this is very strictly to put food into people's stomachs. We're talking about Great Depression era food here. Now, I was going to chop these onions up in advance, but I decided that there's a lot of different ways of chopping onions, and I'm going to show you how I do it, okay? For one thing, I've already chopped each end off. If you watch all Food Network and all that stuff, they always have these different ways that they want to chop their onions. But I cut mine in half. I peel the outer part off. These can be saved to make vegetable broth, and so can the ends that you could cut off. A lot of the people that I know who are very thrifty, they will actually save the skins and each end, and they will put them in the freezer until they're actually ready to make their broth. Okay, now I'm slicing these long way. If you look like this way, usually when I'm actually going to chop up an onion, I will actually go in the other direction too. You kind of have to hold it. I don't know if you can see my fingers kind of holding things down. So if you want to chop it, we can go this direction. Because we're having onion gravy, now we could even do full lengths, but let's just do one slice, and then we can break that up and have pretty decent sized pieces of onion here. So that's what we're going to make, is nice slices of onion that we're going to cook down to make our onion gravy. I'm going to finish this up, and then we'll put this in the pan. Alright, we're going to turn this on probably about medium. We may go a little bit lower as time goes on. We got 4 tablespoons of butter, and I don't know if you know, I've already cut them up into sections. That way you don't have a big blob of butter that's all trying to melt all at once. This will go quicker, and I'm happier about that. It's not completely melted, but we've got a good coating on the bottom of the pan. It's good enough. And we're going to put all these onions in here. Alright, we've got the onions all in here. These are going to break up as they cook down. And I'm not trying to fry these onions. We're going to caramelize them. We're going to make them where they're nice and brown and ooey and gooey and good. And another way, a good way to get these to break down a little more quickly too, is I just threw some salt on there. The salt draws the moisture out of the onions, and when they start actually cooking down without burning. So we're going to let this go. I'm going to check on it every once in a while, make sure that it's cooking down. It may take a while. It could take an hour for these to cook down. It's quite how caramelized you want them to be, and how much, just what you want. So we'll just let these go for a while, and I'll keep an eye on them and stir them up occasionally. Okay, these have been going for about 5 minutes, so you can already see that they're getting a little softer, getting a little more golden. So they've got a ways to go, but you can see the difference in them and how they're already starting to break apart and break down. And we'll just keep these going. This looks like this is a really good temperature for them. I wanted to show you this. I messed up and I walked away from them too long. Now these are still going to be good, don't get me wrong. But I turned the heat down some more so we can get the rest of this. But look how much they've broken down already. And well, like I said, I've turned the heat down so they can caramelize. We don't, like I said, I don't want them fried. I want them nice and caramelized. So just wanted to show you where I messed up, but it's not the end of the world. Because I had cooked them a little fast at first, this only took about 30 minutes. And you can still see one or two of them still could cook down a little bit more. So if you want to, cook it down some more. I think I'm going to try to add some more spices to it though, some more flavoring. Maybe a little bit of sage. That's just like a quarter of a teaspoon of sage. Let's give it a good douse of garlic powder though. Maybe half a teaspoon of garlic powder. I think that's what the recipe calls for. And yes, we got onions in here, but we're going to put some onion powder in it too. Oops. Put that in there. It calls for a beef bouillon cube. I don't have bouillon. And it calls for about 1.5 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce. That should be good. So it also called for some thyme. There's a couple of things that this recipe calls for that I don't have. I'm also going to use flour instead of cornstarch to thicken this. So we got some nice spicing going in here, herbs basically, and to add some flavor to it. Like I said, I don't have a bouillon cube, but we're going to make that do. Another thing, to make it a beautiful rich dark color, you're supposed to use beef broth, but I don't have beef broth. Oh, I forgot, I want to do some flour first too. So now we're going to let this thicken with the flour. There's probably 2 tablespoons of flour. If you want to use cornstarch, go ahead and use it. Oh man, you know, people can't say Worcestershire sauce, and I understand that, but I tell you what, it smells so good. The onions cooking with the sage and the garlic powder and the onion powder. The Worcestershire sauce, man, this is smelling good already. So we got this cooking down to thicken up. Alright, that's a good start there. Now, like I said, I don't have beef broth, but I do have chicken broth. So we're going to add that, probably a couple of cups. Make a good gravy with it. When you add your liquid, turn your heat back up so you can bring it to a nice good, just to a boil. You don't want to boil it down or anything. What we want to do is we want to get we've got the flour where it was cooking in with the onions. Now we're making the gravy, and we're going to thicken that up. And I think I should have measured it because that doesn't look like nearly enough. We'll find out. There we go. Now, like I said, we've got the heat turned up. This will warm up quickly, and we'll have a nice onion gravy. Oh yeah, isn't that beautiful already? So even without the beef broth, we're getting a beautiful color. So now it's bubbling. We can turn the heat back down and let it simmer for a while. And let that thicken up. You could probably even turn the heat off on it, and it'll thicken up on its own. But yeah, we're getting a good gravy out of this. The recipe also calls for 1 more tablespoon of butter to melt it in with it. It's supposed to give it a nice velvety texture. I'm sure just a little more butter will just make it taste good in general anyway. So we'll melt this butter into it. We'll check how it looks after that, and then we'll serve it up. Now the whole purpose of making this up like this, oh yeah, the butter's all melted down. But I also have some bread that was not used the other night. And in the Depression era, they did not let anything go to waste. And I just kind of chunked it up so I can eat it more easily. And we'll just spoon this onion gravy on top of my plate here. Okay, so in here we've got onions and made this beautiful gravy out of the onions, and we've got this leftover bread and it's soaking up the onion gravy. And that is good. That is actually better than I thought it was going to be. Because sometimes when you check into recipes, you go, well, okay, a whole bunch of onions, but this is really wonderful. That touch of Worcestershire sauce in there just gives it a wonderful flavor. I'm liking this. So that's all I've got for you today. That really turned out good, and I'm really pleased with that. And I have made a type of onion gravy before where I've actually fried up the meat or pan fried the meat, and with the drippings that were left over from it, that's what I used to, and saute the onion down, sweated them down and stuff, and then made a gravy with it. But that's the first time I'd ever done it with no meat. So actually, it is much more flavorful than I thought it was going to be. So this is a really nice menu, or a thing to add to your menu, even if it's not the Great Depression. But this is a dish that they made during the Great Depression when all they had was leftover bread and leftover onions and some sort of broth, vegetable broth, whatever, and that makes a really good meal that'll fill people's up. If you have mashed potatoes you'd rather put it on, do that. But they did the day-old bread, and it was really good. All right, I want to remind you that I also have on Etsy, I have what was called scripture skits. I do little short plays. One of them plays up on there is a little bit longer. That's the reason it's more expensive than the other ones. But the others are only like 1.5 to 2 pages long, and the shorter ones are designed for women's meetings. Like two women communicating with each other, something they're struggling with at the time, and how the scripture helps them to get a grip and understand what it is that they're going through and how they can deal with it. So I'm getting 2 or 3 of those up. I'm working on them, adding more all the time, and that is at scriptureskits.etsy.com. And I would appreciate if you go check that out and see if there's any of those skits, because they're a good little icebreaker for the beginning, with like women's meetings or something, just to have something, a type of short, just a couple of minute. It's a message that you can use for your ladies' meetings, and it's also just something that sometimes some of them are funny, and I don't know. I'm enjoying writing them, and I'd appreciate if you check it out. Also, would appreciate if you would hit subscribe and check out my other stuff. I've got several videos coming out now. Some of them are for the Great Depression era. Some things are for the cookbook of the collapse. And those are just plain old cooking videos, like the cookie one I did on the previous video. So, and as I continue to adjust to my new living arrangements, I will come up with other videos too. That's my life. That's the way it goes. All right. God bless, guys. I'll see you next time.